Hello and welcome to After Scientology, Straight Up and Vertical, the weekly show where Tony Ortega and I get together and go over the week's events as reported by Tony on his Substack in the world of Scientology. So this week, first off, welcome, Tony.
Thank you very much, Chris. Glad to be here.
Yeah. Hope everybody didn't suffer too much with the extra hour of sleep. All right, let's go ahead and get into it. We had some interesting stuff this week. Leading off, there is this lawsuit or what is going on with Priscilla Presley in Florida with this continuing legal case.
Yeah, and I'm interested in it because, Lisa Marie Presley had told me herself that she had left Scientology for good in 2014 and had taken out her mother and her daughter with her, Priscilla and Riley. But we see evidence that Priscilla may well be back in Scientology. And then this lawsuit came up. Priscilla's being sued by Priscilla, the company. There was an auctioneer by the name of Bridget Cruz who had come to Priscilla's aid when she was really struggling financially a few years ago and helped her try to turn things around. And then Bridget alleges that once Priscilla's fortunes got going again, there was a movie about her coming out. Suddenly she just shut out Bridget. And so Bridget is suing her for breach of contract. And Priscilla fired back by filing an elder abuse lawsuit in California with the help of Marty Singer, really hitting back hard. And so Bridget then kind of went nuclear and amended her complaint by adding, because one of the things Priscilla is arguing is that she shouldn't be sued in Florida. She has nothing to do with Florida. She has no ties in Florida, which sounds just like a certain church leader we know. But anyway,
right.
And so Bridget came back saying, oh, yeah, you definitely have ties to Florida. In fact, you have a grandchild nobody knows about. So that was the big revelation a couple of weeks ago, that the lawsuit says that Elvis Presley and Priscilla Presley have a grandchild living in Florida. Whereas, Elvis and Priscilla only had one child, Lisa Marie Presley, and she had 4 children, 3 of whom are alive today, and all 3 live in California. So who is this unnamed grandchild currently living in Florida? We don't know yet. Priscilla had 20 days to answer that complaint. That's coming up pretty soon. In the meantime, I had another development, and that was there was originally an evidentiary hearing scheduled for November 13th that I thought was going to be really a big deal. There'd be a lot of press there because Priscilla would be made to answer some of these questions in a live courtroom. But when Bridget filed her new complaint, she said that it'll obviate the it won't need the evidentiary hearing if it's accepted, and the judge agreed. And I guess it's just based on the idea that Bridget has now established that Priscilla has ties to Florida. So they took the evidentiary hearing off the calendar. But then Bridget's attorneys argued further that not only was that evidentiary hearing not necessary, but that Priscilla had applied to attend it remotely from Los Angeles. And her attorneys had used this language about this 78-year-old woman and the hardship of coming to court. And so what Bridget's people did this last week was they filed a motion saying, look, we know there's no hearing on the books right now, but the next time there is, if she tries to pull that, let's just show you how often she comes to Florida. And it turns out she's come to Florida for various Comic-Cons and other kinds of celebrity shows at least 4 times just this year. So the idea of it being a hardship for Priscilla Presley to come to Florida is kind of ridiculous. And I thought they did a very good job in that filing to do that, because it would be a bigger deal if Priscilla was in the courtroom. Again, right now there's no hearing scheduled. What's going on right now is she's supposed to answer that new complaint. And Chris, I don't know if she's going to say anything about the grandchild. She may not. We may not. It may be quite a while before Bridget has to give more information about what she means by that. And in the meantime, I'm not speculating. I've seen some things online and people are guessing about things, and I that's fine. I understand it. It's natural. I mean, come on. Somebody puts something like that in a court file, everybody's going to be guessing about what they mean. But I prefer just to wait and see what we learn from either Priscilla or Bridget. But it's an interesting case to watch, and I don't know. I am intrigued because I am interested in whether Priscilla has gotten back into Scientology. And we talked before about some signs indicating that she may be. So that kind of adds a layer of interest for folks like you and me.
It does. It very much does, because Clearwater, of course, is, well, as they used to say, Clearwater is the Mecca of Scientology. That's what they used to call it, meaning all Scientologists eventually are going to be going there. And Priscilla being a high-level Scientologist, and I'm now assuming that she is back in the fold, given the things we talked about before with the jewelry and whatnot. But even this is just another layer of, yeah, she's probably back in, because, multiple times to Clearwater, that means she could,
she used to live in Clearwater. She and Lisa lived in Clearwater when they were definitely Scientologists. Yeah. Bridget Cruz is suing her in Orlando. And Priscilla is saying, I shouldn't be sued in Florida. I have no ties to Florida. And so Bridget is showing 4 times just this year that Priscilla has come to Florida for Comic-Cons and other things. One was the Tampa Bay Comic-Con, so that one is near Clearwater. But nobody's saying that she's coming to Clearwater to go to Scientology or anything like that.
Oh, no, I'm only putting that out there. I'm okay. Very, very, very clear that that's not being stated, but I will throw out there, it's right there. And I just wish we had access to her invoices from the Flag Service Org, right? That would tell us right away. Now, also, I just had a quick question, because I know there might be some confusion out there. There are, like on Hulu right now, there's a documentary about the Elvis estate and Priscilla and Riley. That's not what this is about, though. These are 2 separate things from who owns Elvis's estate. Remember that kerfuffle?
That got settled. That all got taken care of. When Lisa died, there was a bit of a fight between Riley and Priscilla. Yeah. Which of course led to lots of questions about their relationship. Riley, just a few weeks ago, published her mother's memoir, Lisa's memoir, that Priscilla had finished. And I wrote a lengthy piece about all the Scientology that's in it and all the Scientology that's not in it. And but one thing for sure, Priscilla does not look very good in those early chapters that Lisa had written.
Right.
Later in the book, when Riley's kind of taking over the narrative, and they make it clear which one you're listening to. They use different typefaces because there are whole periods of her life that Lisa just never wrote about. So Riley was trying to fill that in. Mm-hmm. And so again, but no question, Lisa did most of the writing of her childhood with Elvis, and then the years with her mom. And Priscilla does not come across well, basically just dumping Lisa off on Scientology. And was something she had told me that herself. I mean, she was really unhappy about that. And then after Lisa died, that there was clearly a fight between Riley and Priscilla over the estate. But in the later chapters of that book, which, like I said, just came out, and after that court fight, you can see Riley sort of smoothing things over and talking about how great her relationship is with her grandmother. And I don't know, it comes off to me like PR.
Yeah.
I don't really know what their relationship is, but they sued each other. They fought, and Riley basically won, I think. So she owns Graceland. And then, of course, some con artist tried to steal it from her. That's another story going on.
That's right. So there's a lot of irons in the fire when it comes to the Presleys, of course, that family and the amount of money and estate and everything there. But yeah, I was just wanted to.
Well, and let me also say, I've been fortunate on that Orlando case that I got to break the story that it was out in the court. I got to break the story about the mystery grandchild. I don't know, if I'm going to be ahead on some of the other things coming, but I'm glad this is a part of the reason why I'm watching it, is even though it's not in the limelight with the big fight over the estate or the fight over Graceland or the memoir, those are the things that the mainstream press is really focusing on. But this little lawsuit in Orlando actually has an opportunity to really reveal some things about Priscilla and the Presley enterprises and behind the scenes, and we've already seen some bombshells. So that's I'm kind of glad that the mainstream press is not paying as close attention. I've been able to be first to a couple things there, but I don't know if that's going to keep going or not.
Got it. Got it. Well, we'll see what rolls forward here. We'll stay tuned. Okay, now there was this last week being Halloween week. There was a fun story you posted about some quotes from Hubbert that you dug up about the holiday or something. What was this?
Well, I got to say, it was a slow week. And I don't know if it was Halloween or if it was, I don't know. It just, the courts were slow and just wasn't getting as many tips as usual. And Halloween was coming up, and I'm just like, oh, Chris, what am I going to do? But I thought, it's been a while since I have dove into L. Ron Hubbard's lectures. I've read hundreds of them. There are hundreds more that I have not read. I try to go through them. And I thought, hey, I'll do a search. What has this guy ever said about Halloween? I didn't know. And so, you find a lot of little throwaway asides that are not really important. But then I found this one lecture from 1953. And the thing it said about Halloween was interesting, but then leading up to it was also interesting. And I just decided I'm just going to have some fun with this and dig into it. And one of the concepts, that I find so sort of characteristic of Hubbard. Who was it? Was it Lawrence Wright or somebody else that said that L. Ron Hubbard had a Reader's Digest grasp on science?
Yeah.
And it's really clear in this particular instance when he's talking about thetans and anchor points. And I understand what he's getting at. He's trying to, this really bedrock concept in Scientology about being a cause, about whether you're in charge of things or things are being done to you. Are you making things happen or are things happening to you? Is this your universe or are you living in somebody else's universe? And Hubbard says it comes down to, do you know where your anchor points are? And when he talks about anchor points, I realize it's so unscientific. And let me just try to explain what I mean by that. Look, some of us work in very precise industries, whether you're in manufacturing or engineering, sports. Measuring things becomes a really important, measuring things in space. Computer programming, when you're building a game, every single thing in the game has an XYZ position in that game's universe, right? You have to know exactly where things are. And yeah, it would be lovely if we had a way of knowing exactly where we were in space. But the problem is, even though you're sitting there, you seem to be sitting in a chair, not going anywhere, Chris, and you're somewhere in Colorado, and I'm sitting here in New York, and it looks like we're very calmly just having a conversation. Actually, at all times, you and I are going about 800 miles an hour, spinning around as the Earth rotates on its axis. Also, you have to add in 10 or 20, 30, 40 miles more per second that the Earth itself is going around the sun. I'm not even sure what the number is, but so, and then there's the motion of the sun around the galaxy, and then there's the motion of the galaxy. So if you have all these motions that are always happening, which we never feel, how can you determine your X, Y, and Z point in space? And if you're into science or you're into astronomy like I are, you realize there is no absolute X, Y, and Z in space. This is what Einstein was getting at as far as relativity, and you can only measure yourself relative to other things. You can't, there's no ruler in the sky that tells you exactly where you are at any point. But Hubbard pushed that idea that there are anchor points. There are literal points in space. And if you can just anchor yourself to them, you own the universe and eventually you'll become a god. And I just think that's just amazing. And of course, the way I've done my best to kind of explain it in a way that people can generally understand, he never does. It's always in a real mysterious, vague sort of way that he explains. But that's what he's saying. Is like, if you can't figure out your anchor points, you're going to be a slave.
Yeah.
And and that's what he's talking about. And I just thought it was a fascinating essay, and I was trying to help people understand what he was saying. And then he gets to the point, and he's meandering all over the place. He's talking about slavery. At one time, at one point in that lecture, he was talking about Robert Oppenheimer, all kinds of crazy stuff. And then he finally gets to the point, and he says, some people really are uncomfortable with the idea of exteriorizing because they feel like if you're just a thetan without a body, you're kind of like a ghost. And then he said, but that's, the ghosts, the spirits, the specters of yesterday, that's what we call thetans. And I was like, boom, there it is. Because I always say that. I say that Scientology is basically modern age ghost stories that people tell each other. And here he was admitting it himself because it was Halloween and he was like in a mood for that. And he literally says it that, yeah, the ghosts of yesteryear are the thetans of today. And so I just thought that was every once in a while, we've talked about this in the past, Chris, every once in a while, Hubbert just drops the whole curtain and levels with you about what he's really doing. And I thought this was one of those small moments where he's admitting that he's taken 19th century ghost stories and turned them into, mid-century, 20th century, space age, modern ghost stories. And I just thought that was very fun thing to do for Halloween. So like I said, I just was looking for something to write about for Halloween, and it ended up being something I think was pretty fun.
Yeah, I agree. It's Hubbard's meandering and maundering. I mean, they are really something to behold. And you quoted extensively from the lecture, so I do encourage people to check it out because if until you see Hubbard in his pure, as sort of rambling, insane, full blown mode, you really can't appreciate. It's been a long time since this stuff has made much sense to me, the way it used to as a Scientologist. And I just couldn't help but think and comment also that Hubbard might appear to be rambling, maundering, going off in all kinds of weird directions, and he is. But at the same time, there's something else I wanted to throw out, which is that he is purposefully confusing people so that they will more easily accept his information. It's a little trick predators have, and it's a key part of his lecture strategy, you could say, is he uses anecdotes and he does a lot of name dropping and he does a lot of poo-pooing of the exact thing he's doing. Oh, hypnotism is bad, but that's not what we're doing, of course. This kind of thing. He has a few tactics, in other words, that he uses. And this confusion thing is actually one of them. So just so you know, when you read through his stuff and it doesn't make any sense, yeah, that's kind of by design. So it's just all part of the operation. Okay, now there was another one, and I suspect that this may be a story we see repeat in the future of people popping up. In this case, the Pasta Queen, and surprise, she's a Scientologist. What was this story, and what are we looking at here?
Yeah, apparently she's got quite a following. I had never heard of her. I don't look at TikTok very much at all, but apparently. This woman, her story is that during the pandemic, she noticed that her daughters were playing around with TikTok and she was curious about it. So she looked at it and she thought, hey, I can do something. And so she started cooking on TikTok, which, come on, how many tens of thousands of people are out there doing their own little private cooking shows on YouTube and TikTok, whatever? Who knows why one blows up and another doesn't? I mean, she's an attractive woman, maybe that helps, but it's just luck. I mean, one person goes viral and 10,000 others don't, right?
That's right.
But she went viral, and her gimmick was that she's from Italy. She had met her husband in England, and they had moved to the United States, and so she was basically looking for ways to bring her cooking from Italy to where she is now, and she adopted the name the Pasta Queen, which is very clever, and that caught on. And she's doing so well on TikTok and YouTube and all that she now has her own television series on Prime. Prime just started streaming the Pasta Queen, and I think they've aired 2 episodes or something. Again, I was completely unaware of all of this. It's not my kind of show, whatever. But one of my readers contacted me and said, this woman's getting very famous I think she's a Scientologist. Well, the place where she lives in this very big mansion, very expensive home is in Clearwater, Florida. Ooh, there you go. But of course, that's not enough evidence. But then I realized I've actually named this woman at the bunker before. Her name on TV is Nadia Katerina Muno, but she's married to a man named Brooke Zimitor or Zimitori. I'm not sure how he says it.
Zimor.
And so, as Brooke and Nadia Zimitor, they are listed in Scientology magazines. I found a completion for her going back at least as early as 2003. But the thing that's stunning is that, I like to report on who's named in Impact Magazine because that's where Scientology names its really big donors. And sure enough, in the March 2022 Impact, Platinum Meritorious, not one of the people that got their picture taken, unfortunately, but just in the listing in the back, Platinum Meritorious, Brooke and Nadia Zimitor. So Platinum Meritorious, Chris, means $2.5 million just to the IAS. And if somebody's been in since at least 2003, so more than 20 years, and they've given $2.5 million to the IAS, they've given at least another $1 million, $2 million, $3 million for courses, auditing, accommodations, Ideal Org donations, book campaign donations. The IAS is just one way. It's the way that they get the most publicity. So anyway, this is not just like a Scientology member. This is a major donor, somebody that's underwriting what David Miscavige is doing to run Scientology, to destroy lives, to go after people like Leah Remini, to litigate cases endlessly. That's being underwritten by this woman who now is cooking gnocchi on the Prime streaming service. So I just felt it was worth pointing out. I looked up stuff about her, glowing stories about her at Deadline, Collider, Newsweek. Everybody's writing about how, because the gimmick is she flies over to Italy, she finds the greatest ingredients, she comes home, she makes them for her family, everyone's happy. Okay, great, that's fine, but not a single one mentions. And again, I'm sure somebody will say, well, if she was Catholic or Jewish, who cares? No, it's not. That's not it. This woman with $2.5 million in donations is a major underwriter of what David Miscavige is doing with that IS money. And we know what he does with it. He destroys lives with it. So, that's worth pointing out. I don't know. What do you think, Chris? Do you think anybody else is even going to mention it or ask her about it?
Not right now, but it'll come around eventually. And I'm glad that we are getting this out there. My jaw dropped hearing her husband's name because I knew Brooke Zimitor. It's a small world in that Scientology world, man. And it blows me away. Some of the connections that come across my plate sometimes. I wasn't even looking for that, but I was reading through the article and I'm like, wait a minute, what? Yeah, used to be, I believe if it's the same person I remember, then it used to be in the Sea Org. And, left. So yeah, maybe I'm thinking of a brother. I'm gonna say maybe I'm wrong, but I am not wrong about that name. I know that name and that family. So, like I said, small world. And I think you're absolutely right, and it's a point that needs to be driven home. This is not about religious belief or Xenu. This is about throwing money at a predatory organization that uses it to violate people's human rights and does so quite proudly. This is what Scientology is. It's a destructive cult. That's why we report on it. It's not just another religion, and it's not just something we have a chip on our shoulder about. This group hurts people, and that's what she's contributing to. And that does need to be known for people who are giving millions of dollars. I mean, I don't know in my entire life if I've even approximated making $500,000, and these people are throwing this money at an organization that is, anyway, it's just really bad. It's a bad look, and it deserves to be publicly exposed. Okay, Two more things here. We had some disaster relief stories and PR coming out of Clearwater, I think, from Scientology this week.
Yeah, well, we always expect that volunteer ministers in their yellow jackets are going to show up at, a hurricane aftermath in Florida, or I'm hearing now, yes, they showed up. Of course, they showed up for the floods in Valencia, Spain. That's what they do. They show up, hand out pamphlets, give touch assist, which is basically faith healing.
Yep.
And but the number one thing they do is get themselves photographed doing it. It's about the photo opportunity. It's about the footage that they can then use to try to look like they're actually, this helpful organization. And I don't know, the one that they put out this week just caught my eye because it was had so many people in it in the photo and was making all these claims about all the amazing things they had done in Florida. And I thought to myself, yeah, but you're happy that you didn't have to fly anybody anywhere. Finally, the disaster came to you.
Yeah, right. I mean, yeah, obviously not laughing at the disaster itself, but Scientology is really shameless about this. Let's just cover this really quickly. In that, let's be clear. They have their individual public level Scientologists pay their own way to get to the disaster relief site, no matter where it is. They'll get some people together and send them out there. The only thing the church pays for is the camera crew to go out, get the shots, and come back and post it on their websites. That's what the official Church of Scientology, the one that's worth $3 billion, that one, yeah, that's what they do with that money. They don't provide disaster relief funding. They don't do charity work. They don't go out and actually set up logistical support. They just kind of anchor themselves onto whoever else is there and make themselves look good. And it's pretty sick. It actually really is, institutionally. I'm not calling out individual Scientologists who do go volunteer their time and money. I'm talking about the organization. They could be doing 10, 100 times more with the resources that they have. They fake it and they pretend they made it.
Yeah.
That's what they do.
Right.
Okay, so finally, we have a little bit of follow-up on that IAS event over in the UK, the one that was protested last week. We know Tom Cruise was there, but we got some more skinny on what happened behind the scenes. What do we got?
Well, just some more photos. The photos are always a lot of fun, and I knew my readers would want to see some of those. We actually had a little video from the charity concert of a young crooner singing a Platter song, which I thought he did a very good job on, actually. But I'm still waiting for the press release. This is the thing that Scientology puts out, a very fancy press release and slideshow, and I usually learn something interesting from it. I'm waiting to see what Dave puts up, but they still haven't put it out yet. But in the meantime, we had some other photos. We saw some other interesting people we haven't seen in a while, figures that we've known over the years. It's interesting to see them show up in these photos. Charlie Wackley showed up in a number of photos. He was such a prominent person at the London Org and was on social media. And we've heard that he's still there, but he just stepped back from being a public face and just haven't seen much of him. So it was interesting to see him at this event. You could see they were giving out freedom medals on Friday night, and they were in tuxedos and eating dinner on Saturday night, and then Sunday night they had the charity concert. So I mean, it's the same thing that we're used to each year, and we're getting bits and pieces. But I'm really looking forward to what Dave puts out as a press release, because we know that there were probably about 2,000 people there, but they'll say 6,000 or 7,000, and it's just always interesting to see what other things that they say and what they show.
Yeah, exactly. And as we've commented on before, Tom Cruise, flying his Scientology flag loud and proud. Here I am.
I didn't know if they were going to do that this year. Last year, I think they had something to prove, but this year, but yeah, he was there. He was a picture of him with some other Scientologists showed up on social media. He was definitely there Saturday night at the Patrons Ball. It's I think the IAS event has become a big thing for Tom, as the LRH birthday event has become a big thing for John Travolta.
That's right.
And so those are the two things that they tend to visit. LA is far for both of them, and so neither one of them has gone to any of the LA. But I think the LA Scientology has diminished in importance compared to England and Clearwater, Florida. But just today, I saw a tabloid making that same claim. They can't say that Tom has left Scientology because we obviously just posted a photo of him at the IIS event, but they're still pushing this idea that somehow he's sort of like lost status in LA. And I was just like, no, it's the other way around. Scientology in LA has lost status. And that's why you don't see Travolta and Cruz flying all the way out there. They're more into the things that happen in Florida and England. So the tabs just can't figure that out. They want to say that Tom is sort of iced out, but they can't because he keeps showing up at things in England.
Yeah, no, he's definitely not iced out. Stop, please. If he's showing up in England, he is still top dog. I'm telling you, it's how it is. Let me give a little bit of inside history.
And let me just add, Chris. The other thing the tabloid was trying to claim was that it's sad days for Tom because he has no friends, and so that's why he's hanging out with the Beckhams in Florida. Or something. Just a couple of months ago, what did we see at the Olympics? Tom was there with Chris McQuarrie, and he was there with Travis Kelce. I mean, Tom's got plenty of friends, and he was hanging out with them at the Olympics. Did you forget that? That was like 3 months ago. And yet the tabs are trying to promote this. Oh, poor Tom has no friends anymore because of Scientology. But he's been kicked out of Scientology, sort of. But he was in England.
Guys. There's a longer term reason why they're not showing up in LA and why Miscavige and White. I think you're absolutely spot on with LA being in disfavor with Miscavige. He's always hated PAC, the big blue buildings, that base. He's always hated that place. He used to call it Slack PAC. That's what they used to call it, right? And he sent Jenny Linson down there to slap us all around in the 90s and stuff, and that's when we found out about our low opinion. But it really has never come out of that, and it's always been kind of this problem place for Miscavige, especially after all the revelations of what was really going on at the gold base in San Jacinto and with the hole and all of that, which made it doubly bad for him to want to be anywhere near Los Angeles or Scientology there. And so he's pretty much run it from a distance as much as he possibly can ever since then. And that was 10, 14 years ago at this point. So he hates LA. He only has to go there because of the traditional New Year's thing. And if odds are, once they get the Ruth Eckert thing, he'll stay out of LA completely. So
I mean, that was my thought. I know that they were infiltrated at one point. The IAS event was infiltrated by a journalist about 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And it was not too long after that I first started hearing about L. Ron Hubbard Hall. And I started wondering, are they going to build that in Clearwater and then have all their events there because they can control it better security? I don't know. We'll see. I don't know how many more years we have to wait until that thing's done.
Yeah, they were talking about exactly that plan when I was still in the Sea Org.
Okay.
And so and Miscavige takes, I mean, here's where I really do have to kind of say the dude's pretty incompetent. It usually takes him about 10 or 15 years to realize his plans. It's, he's just not, for all the taka of Scientology, that guy is like slow freight. So there's our week. Our Tony, any previews on this coming up week?
Well, I'm really curious to see how Priscilla answers that new motion. We still have some time before Danny Masterson's appeal brief. We still got a couple more weeks for that.
Okay.
But those are the two biggest things I can think of coming in court soon. And we'll just keep an eye on it.
Yeah, we definitely will. All right. Well, folks out there, thanks very much for coming around and checking in with us each week for the breakdown summary of what Tony's been reporting on his Substack. Speaking of, if you are not subscribed, the address is right there on the screen. Check it out. Get your daily notifications, and we'll see you next week. Bye-bye.